Sarah, you're a nobody here. You always have been, and you always will be. Those were my mother's exact words. She said them in my office, in front of my colleagues, during what she thought was a private phone conversation. What she didn't know was that our HR director was on speakerphone, listening to every single word. The smell of fresh coffee still lingered in our conference room. I could see my coworkers' faces freeze as my mother's voice echoed through the speaker. Their expressions shifted from confusion to shock to something that looked like pity. I'm Sarah. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a marketing coordinator for a mid-sized tech company here in Denver, Colorado. I'd been with the company for 3 years, working my way up from an entry-level position. I was good at my job. Really good. My campaigns consistently outperformed expectations, and I'd just been shortlisted for a senior marketing manager position. But in that moment, listening to my mother's voice fill the room with her assessment of my worth, I felt like I was 12 years old again, standing in our kitchen while she explained to my dad why my brother Mike deserved the bigger bedroom. If you want to know what happened next, keep listening. To understand how we got to that moment, you need to know about my family. My parents, Linda and Robert, have been married for 32 years. My dad's a practical man, an accountant who believes in hard work and fairness. My mom has always been obsessed with appearances and status. I have one sibling, my older brother, Mike. He's 31, works in sales for a pharmaceutical company, and has always been the golden child. Not because he was necessarily more talented or harder working, but because he fit my mother's vision of success. He was outgoing, charming, and knew how to play the game. I was different. I was quieter, more analytical. I preferred to let my work speak for itself rather than networking at company happy hours. My mom never understood this approach. I remember the exact moment I realized how she saw me. I was 15, and I'd just been elected treasurer of the student council. I was excited to tell my parents, thinking they'd be proud. When I announced it at dinner, my dad smiled and congratulated me. But my mom just looked at me and said, "Well, treasurer is perfect for you, Sarah. You're just not leadership material like Mike." That line stayed with me. You're just not leadership material. Despite her assessment, I worked hard in school. I graduated with honors, got a degree in marketing and communications, and landed my first job right out of college. Every step of the way, I proved that I was capable, that I could lead, that I could succeed. At my current company, I'd built a reputation for being reliable and innovative. My boss, Janet, often praised my strategic thinking. My colleagues respected my ideas. I'd increased our social media engagement by 200% in my first year alone. But my mother never seemed to notice these achievements. When I'd tell her about a successful campaign or a client compliment, she'd change the subject or find a way to compare it to something Mike had done. It was like she'd decided who I was when I was a teenager, and no amount of evidence could change her mind. Then something didn't add up. 3 weeks ago, my mother called and said she wanted to visit my office. She'd never shown interest in my workplace before, so I was surprised, but pleased. Maybe she was finally ready to see what I'd accomplished. She arrived on a Tuesday morning, dressed in her best business suit. I gave her a tour, introduced her to my colleagues, and showed her some of the campaigns I'd worked on. She smiled and nodded, but I could tell she was more interested in the office layout and who had corner offices than in my actual work. During the tour, I mentioned that I was being considered for a promotion to senior marketing manager. It would mean a significant salary increase and my own team to manage. I'd been working toward this goal for months. My mom's reaction was strange. She didn't congratulate me or ask about the details. Instead, she asked who else was being considered and whether I thought I had a real chance. After the tour, I had to attend a scheduled conference call with our HR director, Patricia, and a few other department heads. We were discussing the restructuring that would create the new senior manager positions. I invited my mom to wait in the conference room while I took the call. "Just give me 15 minutes, I told her. "Then we can grab lunch." I dialed into the conference call, and Patricia's voice came through the speakerphone. We always use speaker for these group calls so everyone could participate easily. My mom was sitting across from me, checking her phone. About 5 minutes into the call, my mom's phone rang. I gestured for her to step outside, but she waved me off and answered it right there in the conference room. "Hello, Mike," she said, not bothering to lower her voice. I tried to signal her to be quiet, but she was already deep in conversation with my brother. The conference call continued, but I was distracted by my mom's side conversation. "Oh, I'm at Sarah's office," she said. "Yes, the Little Marketing Company." "Little Marketing Company?" We were a $50 million business. "She thinks she's getting promoted," my mom continued, and my stomach dropped. Can you believe that? Sarah, in management? I could see Patricia's name still active on the conference call display. Everyone could hear this. That's when my mother said it. "Sarah, you're a nobody here. You always have been and you always will be. Mike, you should see this place. She's showing me around like she owns it, but let's be honest, she's just not management material. She never has been." The conference room went completely silent. Even the voices from the conference call seemed to pause. I stared at my mother, who was still talking to Mike, completely oblivious to what had just happened. "Mom," I whispered urgently, pointing at the phone. She looked at me annoyed. "What?" That's when Patricia's voice came through the speaker, crystal clear. "I'm sorry, but did someone just join our call?" My mother's face went white as she realized what had happened. She quickly ended her call with Mike and looked at me with panic in her eyes. "Sarah, I held up my hand and addressed the conference call. "I apologize for the interruption. We'll continue this discussion later." "Actually, Sarah," Patricia's voice came through the speaker. "Could you please stay on the line for a moment? Everyone else will reconvene tomorrow." The other participants dropped off the call, leaving just Patricia, me, and my mother, who was still sitting there looking mortified. "Sarah," Patricia said, "I think we need to discuss what just happened. Is your mother still there?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Mrs. Linda Morrison," my mom said, her voice barely audible. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Patricia Chen, the HR director here. I'm going to need to document what just occurred. Would you be available to speak with me privately?" My mother looked at me desperately. "Sarah, can we forget this happened? I didn't mean..." "You didn't mean what, Mom?" I asked. "You didn't mean to call me a nobody? Or you didn't mean for anyone to hear it?" She started crying then, which was her usual tactic when confronted. "You know I love you, sweetheart. I was talking to Mike and I got carried away. You know how he is about work stuff." But that wasn't even the worst part. Patricia scheduled a meeting with my mother for the following day. After my mom left, practically running out of the office, Patricia called me into her office. "Sarah, I want you to know that what happened today is completely unacceptable," she said. "No employee should have to endure that kind of treatment, especially from a family member in their workplace." I nodded, still processing everything. "I also want you to know that this incident will have no bearing on your promotion candidacy. In fact, given what I've observed about your professionalism in handling this situation, I'm even more confident in your leadership potential." That evening, my mom called me 6 times. When I finally answered, she was in full damage control mode. "Sarah, honey, you have to help me fix this. I can't have your HR person thinking I'm some kind of terrible mother. What if this gets back to my friends? What if it affects Mike's career somehow?" Notice how her concern wasn't about how her words had hurt me. It was about how the consequences might affect her. "Mom, what you said was really hurtful," I told her. "But you know I didn't mean it like that," she insisted. I was trying to relate to Mike. You know how competitive he is about work stuff. I was just trying to make him feel better about his own situation. By calling me a nobody? I didn't call you a nobody. I said, well, maybe I used that word, but in context. She was already rewriting history, trying to make me doubt what I'd heard with my own ears. The next morning, I could feel the shift in the office atmosphere. Word had spread about what happened, though I'm sure the details had been distorted through office gossip. Some colleagues gave me sympathetic looks. Others seemed curious about the drama. My mom showed up for her meeting with Patricia, and I could see her through the glass walls of the HR office. She was animated, gesturing with her hands, clearly trying to charm her way out of the situation. After the meeting, Patricia called me in. "Your mother is quite a character," she said diplomatically. She spent most of our conversation trying to convince me that what she said was taken out of context. What did you tell her? I explained that regardless of context, her behavior was inappropriate and that any future visits to our office would need to be pre-approved through me personally. I felt a mix of relief and embarrassment. Relief that Patricia was taking it seriously. Embarrassment that my family drama had become a workplace issue. But my mother wasn't done. That afternoon, she somehow got Janet's direct phone number and called my boss. I only found out because Janet mentioned it to me the next day. "Your mom called me yesterday," Janet said casually during our weekly check-in. She wanted to clarify what happened in the conference room. My heart sank. What did she say? "She tried to convince me that you'd misunderstood her conversation with your brother, and that she was actually praising your work ethic. She said you were sensitive and had blown things out of proportion." I wanted to disappear. "Janet, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was going to—" "Sarah, stop." Janet's voice was firm but kind. "Your mother's behavior reflects on her, not on you. If anything, the way you handled the situation showed incredible professionalism." Then something didn't add up. That evening, my phone started buzzing with messages from our family group chat. Mike had apparently heard about the misunderstanding at my office and was rallying the troops. "Mike, Mom told me what happened at Sarah's work. This is getting blown way out of proportion." My Aunt Carol. "What happened?" Mike. "Sarah's making a big deal about a private conversation Mom had. Now she's got HR involved and everything." My cousin Jennifer. "That seems extreme, Sarah." I stared at my phone, reading message after message from family members who had heard Mike's version of events. According to him, I was being dramatic and vindictive, trying to get my mother in trouble over a simple misunderstanding. I typed and deleted several responses before finally writing, "That's not what happened, but I don't think this is the right forum to discuss it." Mike. "Then maybe you should call Mom and work this out privately instead of involving your company." The pressure was building. My family was closing ranks, and I was being painted as the unreasonable one. It was a familiar dynamic, but this time felt different. This time there were witnesses. Over the weekend, I decided to document everything that had happened. I wrote down the exact timeline, the words that were said, and the people who were present. Something about the whole situation felt bigger than just one embarrassing incident. On Monday morning, I was reviewing my notes when I remembered something odd. A few months ago, I'd applied for a position at another company, a competitor where I thought I might have better advancement opportunities. I'd made it through 2 rounds of interviews and felt confident about my chances, but then I was suddenly told they'd decided to go with an internal candidate. At the time, I was disappointed but not suspicious. These things happened. But now, thinking about my mother's pattern of undermining me, I wondered. I called the company and asked to speak with the hiring manager, Tom Bradley. We'd had a good rapport during the interview process. "Sarah, good to hear from you. How are things going at your current company?" "Actually, Tom, I wanted to ask you something about the position I interviewed for. You mentioned going with an internal candidate, but I'm curious. Did anyone contact you about my application? There was a pause. That's interesting you ask. We did receive a call from someone claiming to be a former supervisor of yours. They raised some concerns about your reliability and leadership potential. My stomach dropped. Do you remember who called? I'd have to check my notes, but I believe it was a woman. She said she'd worked with you at a previous company and felt obligated to share her concerns. I'd never had a female supervisor at any of my previous companies. My mother, however, had a very convincing phone manner and wasn't above lying to protect what she saw as the family's interests. Tom, I need to tell you something. I think that call might have been fraudulent. After I explained the situation, Tom was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, if what you're saying is true, this could be a serious legal matter. Interfering with someone's employment opportunities, that's not just unethical, it could be criminal. That afternoon, I called Patricia and asked for a private meeting. I told her about the suspicious phone call and my growing suspicion that this wasn't an isolated incident. Sarah, if your mother has been systematically interfering with your career opportunities, that's harassment. It's also potentially illegal interference with your livelihood. She recommended I consult with an employment attorney just to understand my options. She also suggested I start documenting any future contact from my mother regarding my work. I want you to know that the company will support you if you decide to pursue this legally, she said. What happened in that conference room was just the tip of the iceberg, wasn't it? I nodded, finally understanding the full scope of what I was dealing with. That evening, my mother called again. This time, instead of answering immediately, I let it go to voicemail and then played it back on speaker while I recorded it with another device. Sarah, this is getting ridiculous. I talked to Mike, and he thinks you should just drop this whole thing. People are starting to talk, and it's not good for any of us. You need to call your HR person and tell her this was all a misunderstanding. If you don't, I'm going to have to take more serious steps to protect our family's reputation. I wish I could say that was the end. The following Sunday, my father called and asked me to come to dinner. Your mother wants to talk to you about this work situation, he said. I think it's time we all sat down and worked this out as a family. I almost said no, but something in my dad's voice made me reconsider. He sounded tired, like he'd been caught in the middle of something he didn't fully understand. I arrived at my parents' house at 6 o'clock. The dining room table was set for 4, my parents, Mike, and me. This was clearly planned as an intervention. My mother had prepared my favorite meal, which should have been a nice gesture but felt manipulative given the circumstances. Mike was already there, sitting in his usual spot, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Sarah, sweetheart, my mom said as I walked in. I'm so glad you came. We need to clear the air about this whole misunderstanding. I sat down across from Mike, my phone in my pocket, recording app already running. Mom, it wasn't a misunderstanding. You called me a nobody in front of my colleagues and HR director. But that's not what I meant, she insisted. I was just talking to Mike about workplace dynamics. I never intended for anyone else to hear it. But you did say it, I replied calmly. And you meant it, or you wouldn't have said it. Mike jumped in. Sarah, come on. Mom says things sometimes. We all know she doesn't mean half of what comes out of her mouth. That's supposed to make it better? My father, who had been quiet up to this point, finally spoke. Linda, what exactly did you say to Sarah's coworkers? My mother's face flushed. Robert, it's not about what I said. It's about how Sarah is handling it. She's involving lawyers now, for crying out loud. You involved lawyers? Mike asked, looking at me with disbelief. I consulted with an attorney because I discovered that Mom has been interfering with my job applications, I said. This isn't just about one embarrassing comment. This is about a pattern of sabotage. The room went silent. My father set down his fork and looked at my mother. Linda, what is she talking about? My mother's composure started to crack. I may have made some phone calls, but I was protecting her. Some of those companies weren't right for Sarah. I was saving her from making mistakes. You cost me job opportunities, I said, my voice still calm but firm. You lied to potential employers about my qualifications and character. I never lied, she protested. I shared my concerns about whether those positions were the right fit. Mike was staring at our mother like he was seeing her for the first time. Mom, you can't just call Sarah's potential employers. That's crazy. Don't you dare call me crazy, she snapped at Mike. Then she turned to me, and her voice took on a desperate edge. Sarah, you need to fix this. Call your HR person tomorrow and tell her this was all blown out of proportion. Tell her I was having a bad day and said things I didn't mean. No, I said simply. What do you mean, no? I mean, no. I'm not going to lie to cover up your behavior. I'm not going to minimize what you did or pretend it didn't happen. My mother stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Then you're choosing your job over your family. I looked at her. This woman who had spent years undermining my confidence and sabotaging my opportunities, and I felt something shift inside me. No, Mom. I'm choosing myself. The next morning, I called the employment attorney Patricia had recommended. Her name was Rebecca Martinez, and she specialized in workplace harassment and interference cases. Based on what you've told me, Rebecca said after I explained the situation, you may have grounds for a harassment claim, and possibly a tortious interference claim if we can prove your mother deliberately sabotaged job opportunities. She explained that tortious interference occurs when someone intentionally disrupts another person's business relationships or opportunities. If my mother had indeed called potential employers with false or misleading information, she could be held legally liable for the damages. The key is documentation, Rebecca said. Do you have any evidence of these phone calls? I told her about the conversation with Tom Bradley and suggested she contact him directly. I also mentioned the voicemails my mother had left and the family group chat messages. Good. I want you to screenshot everything, every text message, every voicemail transcript, every email. We need to build a timeline that shows this is a pattern of behavior, not just one isolated incident. Over the next few days, I compiled everything. The family group chat messages where Mike was pressuring me to let it go. The voicemails where my mother alternated between guilt trips and threats. The email I found in my spam folder from 6 months ago, where my mother had somehow gotten my work email address and sent me an article about knowing your place in the corporate hierarchy. I also reached out to Tom Bradley again and asked if he could provide a written statement about the phone call he'd received. He agreed, and his statement was damning. According to his notes, the caller had claimed to be my former supervisor at a company where I'd never actually worked, and had made specific allegations about my work ethic and reliability. But that wasn't even the most shocking discovery. Rebecca suggested I request my personnel file from HR to see if there had been any other unusual inquiries about my employment. Patricia was happy to help, and when she pulled my file, we found something disturbing. There were notes about 3 separate phone calls over the past 2 years, all from women claiming to be former colleagues or supervisors, all raising concerns about my suitability for promotion or increased responsibility. Sarah, Patricia said, looking at the file. These calls all came from the same phone number. She showed me the number, and I recognized it immediately. It was my mother's cell phone. The timestamps told the story. Each call had come shortly after I'd mentioned to my family that I was being considered for a promotion or new opportunity. My mother had been systematically sabotaging my career for 2 years, and she'd been using my own conversations with her as intelligence to time her interference. I felt sick. How many opportunities had I lost? How many times had I blamed myself for not being good enough, when the real problem was my mother's deliberate sabotage? Rebecca reviewed all the documentation and gave me her assessment. Sarah, this is one of the clearest cases of tortious interference I've seen. Your mother's actions have directly and measurably harmed your career prospects. Then something didn't add up. Rebecca suggested we send a cease and desist letter to my mother before pursuing any legal action. It would put her on notice that her behavior was illegal and give her a chance to stop before we escalated further. The letter was delivered to my parents' house on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, my phone was ringing nonstop. But it wasn't my mother calling. It was Mike. "Sarah, what the hell is this letter Mom got? You're threatening to sue her?" "I'm documenting her illegal interference with my career," I said. "She's been calling my potential employers for 2 years, Mike. 2 years. That can't be right." "It is right. I have phone records, timestamps, everything." There was a long pause. "Sarah, I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Mom. She's been doing the same thing to me." I almost dropped the phone. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she's been calling companies where I've applied for jobs, but in my case, she's been trying to help me get hired. She calls and pretends to be a former colleague, gives glowing references, talks up my qualifications." The full scope of my mother's manipulation was finally becoming clear. She hadn't just been sabotaging me. She'd been actively working to advantage Mike while disadvantaging me. She'd been playing both sides, ensuring that he succeeded while I struggled. "Mike, that's fraud. If companies hired you based on fake references..." "I know," he said quietly. "I never asked her to do it, Sarah. I had no idea until recently. She let it slip during an argument we had about something else." "How recently?" "Last week. Right after the thing at your office happened. She was ranting about how ungrateful you were being, and she said something about how she'd been managing both of your careers for years to make sure the family stayed successful." I was speechless. My mother had been orchestrating our professional lives like some kind of twisted puppet master, deciding who deserved success and who didn't. "There's more," Mike said. "I think she's been doing this to other people too. Remember our cousin Jennifer? The one who's been struggling to find work in her field?" I remembered. Jennifer was a talented graphic designer who'd been having trouble landing good positions despite her portfolio and experience. Mom made some comment about how Jennifer needed to learn some humility before she'd be ready for a real career. I think she might have been sabotaging Jennifer too. The pattern was becoming clear. My mother had appointed herself the arbiter of who in our family deserved success. She'd been systematically interfering in multiple people's careers, playing God with our livelihoods based on her own twisted sense of family hierarchy. But that wasn't even the worst part. "Mike," I said, "I need you to do something. I need you to call Rebecca Martinez. She's my attorney. You need to tell her everything you just told me. Sarah, if I do that, it could ruin Mom's life. And mine too, if companies find out about the fake references. Mike, she's been ruining lives for years. How many opportunities do you think I've lost? How many people has she hurt?" There was a long silence. Finally, Mike said, "I'll call your lawyer." That evening, Rebecca called me with an update. "Sarah, your brother's information changes everything. This isn't just about you anymore. Your mother has been running a systematic campaign of career manipulation that could affect multiple people and companies." She explained that with Mike's testimony, we could prove a pattern of fraudulent behavior that went far beyond simple harassment. Companies that had hired Mike based on fake references could have grounds for fraud claims. People whose careers had been sabotaged could have civil claims for damages. "I'm recommending we contact the district attorney's office," Rebecca said. "This level of systematic fraud might warrant criminal charges." The investigation moved quickly once law enforcement got involved. My mother's phone records confirmed the pattern of calls to various companies over a 3-year period. Some calls were designed to help Mike, others to hurt me, and still others to sabotage Jennifer and 2 other family members I hadn't even known about. The district attorney's office was particularly interested in the fake reference calls. Several companies had hired people based on fraudulent information, which constituted wire fraud and could carry serious penalties. My mother hired her own attorney, but the evidence was overwhelming. Phone records, recorded conversations, written statements from multiple hiring managers. It all painted a clear picture of systematic fraud and harassment. 3 weeks after the investigation began, my mother's attorney reached out to Rebecca about a plea agreement. In exchange for avoiding criminal charges, my mother would agree to cease all contact with any current or potential employers of family members, pay restitution for documented career damages, submit to psychological counseling, perform community service, and issue formal apologies to affected parties. The restitution amount was significant. Rebecca had calculated my lost earnings from the sabotage job opportunities at over $40,000. Mike's situation was more complicated. While he'd benefited from fake references, he'd also been a victim of manipulation. The companies that had hired him based on fraudulent information were dealing with that separately. Jennifer, it turned out, had lost at least 3 job opportunities due to my mother's interference. She was pursuing her own legal action. The hardest part was the family fallout. My father was devastated when he learned the full extent of my mother's behavior. I knew she could be controlling, he told me, but I never imagined anything like this. He filed for separation 2 weeks after the plea agreement was signed. I can't be married to someone who would deliberately hurt her own children, he said. Mike and I had several difficult conversations about his role in everything. He genuinely hadn't known about the fake references until recently, but he acknowledged that he'd benefited from our mother's favoritism in other ways throughout our lives. I'm going to make this right, he told me. I don't know how yet, but I will. The promotion I'd been considered for? I got it. Patricia made it clear that my handling of the entire situation had demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership and integrity they wanted in management. On my first day in my new role, I found a card on my desk from my team. Inside, someone had written, "To our new manager, someone who definitely isn't a nobody." I kept that card in my desk drawer as a reminder. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new office. Yes, I finally got that corner office my mother was so interested in, reviewing quarterly reports from my team. We've exceeded our targets by 15%, and I've been asked to present our strategies to the executive board next month. My relationship with my mother is complicated. She completed her community service and counseling requirements, and she sent me several letters apologizing for her behavior. I'm not ready to forgive her yet, and I may never be. Trust, once broken this completely, doesn't heal easily. My father and I have grown closer. He's been going to therapy to understand how he missed the signs of my mother's manipulation for so many years. I enabled her by not speaking up, he told me recently. I won't make that mistake again. Mike and I are rebuilding our relationship slowly. He left his job and found a new position where he could start fresh, without any question about how he got there. It was the right thing to do, and I respect him for it. The most important thing I've learned from this experience is that you can't let other people define your worth, not even family members. For years, I internalized my mother's assessment of my capabilities. I let her voice become the voice in my head telling me I wasn't good enough, wasn't leadership material, wasn't worthy of success. But here's the truth. You are the only person qualified to determine your worth. Your value isn't up for debate, and it certainly isn't determined by people who feel threatened by your success. If someone in your life is systematically undermining your confidence or sabotaging your opportunities, that says everything about them and nothing about you. Document everything. Seek support from trusted advisors, and don't be afraid to set boundaries, even with family. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love and support us are the ones who hurt us most. But that doesn't mean we have to accept that treatment or make excuses for it. I still keep that card from my team in my desk drawer. On days when that old voice tries to tell me I'm not good enough, I read it again. To our new manager, someone who definitely isn't a nobody. Because I'm not a nobody. I never was. And neither are you. If you've been through something like this, family sabotage, workplace harassment, or someone systematically undermining your success, tell me about it in the comments. What would you have done in my situation? How did you handle people who tried to define your worth for you? And if you're currently dealing with someone who's trying to convince you that you're not good enough, remember this. Their opinion is not your reality. Your worth is not up for vote. Thanks for listening to my story. I'll see you in the next one.